in a sense, it's impossible to know yourself. Because, as you may have heard from many teachings, there's no two. Who is it that's knowing themselves? And what's the value? We tend to look for benefit in being self-aware. Maybe we have higher consciousness, deeper awareness and consciousness, a deeper sense of our own value. But it's mostly, I have to say, an illusion. It's a temporary state. The division of self into multiplicity is an extraordinary journey, and we're all here to witness it. We're all here to be it. We're all here to serve it. But we're not necessarily here to benefit from it. And if we're looking for release from suffering, pain, if we're looking to be made in some way special or unique or other, it's pretty much doomed to failure. Because we're not here for our own benefit. We're honestly here for others. That's really what we're doing here. We're here to serve. We are servants of something very great, and we're very temporary in that reality. The only benefit, in a sense, that we get is in how much we let go of our individual, personal need and become truly conscious of, aware of, and available to the other. That's our purpose, if we have purpose in life. And if you want to benefit at all, you will discover that the greatest joy and blessing, if you will, in life is when you serve others. If you do it to serve yourself, there will be some side benefit of that, but it's conditional and mostly feeds ego-minded self. But if you really surrender, let go, really devote yourself to the kindness of being available to others, you will find, I think, the deepest form of joy and fulfillment that human beings can find. Because you're serving something so much greater than you. It uses you. It cares about you. It loves you. But you're temporary. You're just here momentarily to provide love, comfort, light, and joy to all those around you. And you may not fully understand that because we are in many ways selfish. And we really want the benefit of being good and kind to devolve back to us. And in a way it does, because quite honestly, the environment you create in your own acts of kindness is where you live. That's the environment you inhabit. So in a way, you do benefit. But your spiritual life is not going to protect you from pain and suffering and dissolution. Sorry about that. If you think you're here to somehow become bigger than and better than the human experience, that somehow you can tap into something that will protect you and save you for eternity, in a way, there's some truth in that, but it's not the you that has a body, that has a name, that has a mind, that has a history or a story of any kind. There really is something in you, of you, essentially at the core of you, that is not named by anything. It just is. It is complete being. It has its own, I hate to use words at all to define it because they're all wrong, but I'll say it has its own truth. And that truth sometimes appears to serve you in ways that make you feel good. Excuse me. And at times, sometimes it appears not to serve you at all, not to be of benefit. It kind of disappears from your sphere, and you feel loss and absence. But it in no way allows you to abdicate the role of provider of love and kindness to others. You can even put yourself in that equation. You know, you're worth it. You can really love who you are. You can love the temporary nature of your own journey. You can love the fact that you exist. And you can love everything that manifests around you, because in some ways it is all holy ground. It is all totally, remarkably, vividly divine space. And if you don't see it that way, you're missing something. And it's not to be computed as, well, let me look at it through that lens of, oh, yes, this is divine and this is holy and this is beautiful. Take that out of the equation. It's not something you interpret. It's not something you consider. It's not something you think about. It's not something you create as a story. It simply is. It simply is. It's hard to talk about this stuff because the mind wants to grab onto it in some kind of way that makes you a beneficiary of the wisdom or the knowledge or the insight. And in a way you do. In a way you are a beneficiary, but it's all temporary. It's all conditional. It's all story-based. It's all narrative. And the underlying being, reality, if you will, it contains your story and the story of life and being and God and all of the magnitude of reality that we seem to try to hold on to in our brain. But it's so beyond that. It's just beyond that. And all the words we use and all the stories we use and all the biblical and religious teachings we give ourselves are just indicators. They're just indicators that there is something so big and vibrant and beyond comprehension that is going on. And if you can let go enough, surrender in Rudy's terms, enough, go inside enough, and start to feel that space of knowing, not thinking, not considering, not debating, not having it come from your mind, but letting go of the mind and letting yourself be in this space. I can only tell you from, half a century or more of practice that there is most of the time a place of welcoming, a place of loving and embrace that isn't of the other, but of itself. It embraces its own amazing truth and reality, and you are that. You are that. It is my experience, so I can't tell you if this is true or not true or whatever, that there is a part of the ego-mindedness that likes a certain part of that experience. And it needs to be worn down because it's still separated from it. And it wears itself down by having the self disappear, the deeper self disappear from conscious enjoyment or the expression of duality and otherness. It goes away. And when that happens, and I talked about this a lot, but it's so important because if you experience it, you have to know it. It's just working you. It's erasing you. The discomfort of having nothing there, of having no joy, of having no beauty, of having no love and exquisite experience of light and illumination, having all that go away may seem like punishment. It may feel like profound loss, but it's only loss to the part of you that has separated itself out of the totality. And that part of you, in a sense, I'm going to say this as a story element because I don't know it for a fact, but as far as I can tell, it needs to be washed away and cleansed, if you will, or evaporated out, so that all that remains ultimately is this, and you will use the word pure state of being, illumination, awareness, consciousness, love, God, truth, whatever you want to call it. And all those names are all to satisfy the mind and the brain. This state of being doesn't need names. It doesn't need anything. And what it doesn't really want is for you to separate out from it and think of yourself as somehow special, divine, touched by, or worse than, or lesser than, or any of those things that the mind does for itself. The mind is purposeful. The human journey is purposeful. The separating out into the world is necessary. This is all part of the totality. I cannot tell you the reasoning for any of it, but it appears to me to be that the self wants to know itself, to see itself, to touch itself, to love itself, to give itself a deep embrace. But in the end, one must return to singularity. You must return to your own being, to the being, and have no sense of two. It's not easy, and it has a painful aspect. And the painful aspect is the part of you which will be your body, your mind, and your emotions that will suffer the loss of separateness. It's built in. I don't know why it's built in. I can tell you that, when you go on the COVID journey, you get a taste of it. You get a taste of suffering. You get a taste of pain. You get a taste of all the things that are there. And the why me, God question comes up, and and where are you when I need you kind of comes up. But I can only tell you that the more you do your practice of just go inside and go, be quiet. You go inside and you get the directive not to serve you and feel better, it's to still serve others. And the real gift of my own COVID experience has been Blanche, because one, she had COVID, and caring for her and loving her and wanting her to be well served the situation much better than me at all being concerned about myself. You don't know, all of you know Todd, but Todd has been very sick with COVID. And having many people in my life suddenly appear in the last week, I don't know why, with unbelievably difficult health issues and suicidal ideations, and all sorts of things have come in the last week. And I can only tell you that the universe wants me to go be a caretaker, be someone who loves, be someone who embraces. If you want to look at your own illness and your own stuff, okay, but it's not where you get better. what makes you feel alive and wonderful and vibrant in the most perfect sense is caring about the other. Other is everything. You know, other is what you're here for. We are here to love each other, to help each other, and to know that it is through other that our greatest service happens in life, and that the greatest transformational power of our inner being comes into play. By serving other, we are much more, if you will, liberated than serving ourself. It's the real key. It's what we're here for. And so I guess the message that I'm trying to convey, and it's really the hardest message that I have, is that there is in this journey a time of suffering, a time of loss, a time of abuse, if you will, that you are no longer being loved for and cared for by the universe. Know that you're going to go through that. And if there's ever a time to do the work, to go inside, to go to being absent, to having the universe abandon you, that's the time, because really at that moment is when you discover the truth of your own emptiness and totality. Emptiness and totality are not opposites. Emptiness and fullness are not opposites. They are totality. And it's only when you let go of you and your own private fear and loss and suffering, when you become brave enough, open enough, courageous enough to go, thy will be done, that you can arrive at the dissolution of separateness and the arrival at who you are, who you really are. But if you try to do it for that goal, then you get in trouble. There's no goal here. It's recognition, it's awakening, realization, who you are, who you've always been. That's all it is. That's the journey, and it's a tough one. It is really tough, and nobody escapes it. And the best thing we can do on this journey is help each other. Done. I have two screens because there's two groups. So if anyone has a question, I suppose you can just speak up, or you can try raising your hands and I'll click back and forth. Nope. Okay. Oh, sorry, Dean.
I wanted to ask you about shadow, like your talk about splitting and losing that sense of other or being separate from. How I wanted to ask you to talk about like shadow self, the darker sides, the side that like when like I recognize that there are darker parts of me that are there from previous experiences of pain or whatever, and like I'm not controlled by them, but I see them and I'm trying to make sense out of them. Like I could see how they could be useful in some ways, you know, to have that to draw on as a body of experience, but like, and so this goes into, it's one aspect of being split from the totality, and so maybe it's just kind of, I don't know, secondary to what you're talking about, but
It's not. It's a core question, and you know, I can give you answers that may make your brain feel better. But we are light and dark. The universe is light and dark. It's good and evil. It's high and low. It has all aspect, and all of creation comes from that. And I'm not totally aware of the design factor that goes into that, but we all experience light and dark in and of ourselves. We are at the core both things, and it's been interesting to me because in the last week or so, and again, COVID has something to do with it, I started to witness in myself a number of things. One of them was extraordinary fear, and the other was profound rage. I don't have rage, and I don't have profound fear, but now I do. And I am surprised by it. It is a revelation to me that I, the spiritual entity that's worked for half a century to open my heart and be good and all that kind of crap, all of that stuff still has within it this unbelievable rage that wants to come out in the supermarket or when somebody gets cuts in front of me. It's like, it's not annoyance, it's not anger, it's like a full-bodied thing. And I'm going, this is really interesting, because where has this been lurking all this time? Why has it been there and I haven't been aware of it? Because I have lived a certain kind of controlled life. And in a way, that control is a good thing, because that rage has not been able to express itself into my life in a way that would be really destructive and harmful to me and to others. So it's not that I have sublimated it, really. It just hasn't had to come to the fore. But now, as I'm getting old and weak and my body's deteriorating and life is falling apart and all of these things are happening, let alone the world around us, which I'm not going to talk about today, but there's a lot of stuff that can incite all of this rage and darkness and fear and hostility. And I'm going, I have over 50 years learned not to give into that, not to avoid it, not to say it doesn't exist, but to witness it now with a whole new level of awareness and bow down to the power of it, because it has enormous thrust in the world. It does many things in the world, including creating and destroying. And if you will, the universe is both a creator and a destroyer simultaneously. It creates and takes it apart, maybe moment to moment. So all I can tell you is the shadow side is real. It's in you. I've known you for a long time, so I've gotten to witness the shadow side. You do a very good job of dancing around it, to be honest. And most of us do. Most of us are here, sitting here today, because we have found some capacity not to be exploring and delving into the darker realms of our being. On the other hand, they will come to light. And their coming to light is not punishment. It's not a bad thing. It's not the universe saying, you've always been a horrible person, really. It's just saying you've always been human. You've always been a caretaker, if you will, of a vast range of possibilities and emotions, both love and hatred. You have chosen particularly to present the positive, joyful, loving emotions. But I know you carry the other stuff inside, because we all do. And if you walk around with your mind doing a number on you, going, oh, I've been a bad person, or I'm really a bad person, or, if I go to a good Jungian shrink, they'll talk all about my shadow self, and I'll discover how awful the parts of me are. It's all true. It's all true. But look at the life you're living, and how much of that is animating your life. How much of that is actually affecting the day to day? You live in a lovely home. You have a beautiful wife and daughter. There's I know there are emotions involved with that. I know there are angers and all that other stuff that come up in any human experience. But you look at that with a human mind, and then if you can go deep inside, a forgiving mind or a forgiving heart, and you go, of course, this is what it is. It's not easy. The human journey is not easy. And if I were to sit you down with anyone in this room or on this Zoom call right now, and you heard all of their true stories, shadow self, illuminated self, you would be shocked by the darkness that comes into everybody's life, or it's hidden in the crevices of everybody's life. It's there. We are beings that are trying to work through this by, in a way, serving the other. I push that as a big agenda, because serving the self tends to reinforce a lot of the stuff that's actually suppressing and hiding and burying things inside. Serving others allows stuff to come up and to get expressed. You get to see you. And you get to see the parts of you that want to be angry, that want to be enraged, that want to be hostile. You get to see all that stuff if you're working for others, because so much of us wants, in a sense, to be served rather than to do the serving. But when you do the serving, it takes care of you as well as the outside equation. It's a great practice. So I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly, because I can't tell you the how and the why the universe created good and evil. I don't know why it created light and dark. I don't know that. But I do know that we have an incredible capacity to work with these forces and to find a way to get to a place of deep and profound acceptance and surrender. And it's liberating. It's freeing. It really helps to get through the day. And you can share that with everybody around you. Is that okay? I don't know what more to say.
I wanted to ask you, so you were saying that you kind of confronted this when you got COVID and feel sick. I was gonna just ask for, is there anything practical you could offer for similar, but like when you're tired? Like I noticed my darker side kind of coming up when I'm less resourced, when I'm depleted, when I'm tired and exhausted and sick and
yeah, you have to, it's a sad truth, but the most difficult, demanding work of your life will be as you're leaving it. You have to work harder as you're dying than you ever had to while you were living. That's the real work. You have to let go, let go, let go, let go, and it's really hard, and you have no energy. You have nothing. And I think the great teaching comes out of that, because it may look like it's really hard and demanding work, but as my mother-in-law taught me, it's like, and if we can go like that at any given moment in time, it's liberating. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's just hard. It's a difficult ride. But I'm telling you, if you hold hands, you can call me anytime. I'll hold your hand. That's all I want to do anymore is hold hands, because it serves. And that's all we can do to get through this very complicated, difficult experience of being in a body and being in this world, and particularly this world at this time. What a shitty time. Anyone you talk to now will give you stories about what a hard time this is. And yes, and I don't know that it's getting easier. What do? Hold hands, guys. Just hold hands. Find community wherever you can. And we are a community, even though we're on Zoom and online and all of that stuff. It is a community. There's a lot of energy and a lot of heart that comes out of this particular screen, and let it go into the atmosphere where you live and to the people around you. And when you walk outside, and trust me, you're serving the highest possible principle of existence by just being this kind and loving entity who cares about other people instead of just you. It's worth it. It's hard, but it's worth it. Okay, I've gone on and on. Is there anybody else that has a question? Yeah. Tara. Tara, I can't hear you, so you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for teaching. I did not know that you had COVID. I'm so sorry that you got so sick. I had it very badly, as you remember. Wow. To me, waking up from brain surgery, that was like a 19-hour surgery. And COVID, when I first got hit with COVID, were not dissimilar. I made some of the worst decisions of my life after COVID and after brain surgery. So I was just going to say, healing is such a journey, and it takes so much longer than what we think it will be. And when we think we're better, like in this Western mind of we're all good now, it's like it's actually like reverberates into other things that I'm literally just unpacking 14 years later.
Yeah, well, yes, you're right. Human suffering, illness, etc. They go deep into the psyche, and I'm learning. I'm learning from this. I have a better skill set at dealing with it than I thought I did, and what's so amazing, because I have COVID today, I guess, but I mean I test positive, but the energy flowed perfectly. And I don't think any one of you got contaminated by it. And all I can tell you is that I feel it's Rudy would use the word test a lot. It's a test. How do you pass the test or not pass the test? A lot of us fail tests, but you fail it in order to learn, and then you do better. The COVID test for me is just that it got in the way of Blanche's birthday, which was, an 80th birthday, which, by the way, to all of you who wrote her and were expressing such kindness to her, thank you so much. It's so appreciated. But her birthday in the middle of COVID, which we both had at the time, she's better, was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. Yes, we're suffering with COVID, and yes, all the plans went out the window at that moment, and yet it was stunningly human and loving and wonderful. So the fact that you have an illness and you have an injury and all these things can be a reason for a great deal of dissolution and disturbance, or you can turn it into something else, which is, I think, one of the opportunities that life offers all of us to find goodness in our own misery. Not easy, and nobody's going to celebrate you for it particularly, but I will tell you, having Blanche's birthday party was like outside. Josh and the kids came over with cupcakes and masks, and we sat around, but it was beyond belief beautiful, and the people's kindness was so wonderful. And I'm telling you, the reaching out, the expression of love like that means so much. And all of you are, you are learning to do that. If you did it for Blanche, thank you. If you didn't do it for Blanche, do it for others, because that's what we're here for, to reach out, be of service. I'm telling you, it's the best healing that there is. Anybody else? I'm repeating myself 100 times over. Tony, was that
No, I was noticing George was waving his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't see George. George, do you want to go forward? George,
Yes.
I don't hear you.
Oh, muted.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
We both know someone who's talking about suicide. How do you help that individual when you really don't know how? I mean,
Well, it's a good question. It's the first time I've had someone call me wanting to commit suicide. And there's a long story behind it, which I don't want to go into, but one thing I did, which did not register well, was invited them to come stay with us, be in my home. I would be there as a caretaker of kind, but I don't know that was the right answer. And they kind of laughed and said no. And their daughter was going to put them in a home to help. And the police had been called the day before and actually came and took them into jail. I don't think that's a good solution to somebody who's expressing suicidal ideation. I don't know the answer to it. I just know, do what you can to help and be available to them. I've talked to a number of people now who have had suicidal ideation, and I will confess that during some of the absences that I've experienced internally in my own spiritual journey, and I'm talking in the last year, I also have experienced that. It's stupid on some level because I don't think it's a release, but I can only tell you there are moments where emotional pain, even more than physical pain, is so unendurable that you don't see an out. You just want relief. And I don't want medical relief, really. I don't want to be deadened by medicines personally, although that may be one of the only options at some point. But I do know that I was shocked to see myself suffering at that level. And in the end, I took it as a teaching, and I still do, because the universe plays with my being on some foundational level, and especially in the middle of the night. And I don't want to do a big number here, but I have to work with it regularly. And so when someone comes to me with suicidal need, I really empathize. It's not an intellectual kind of, oh, I get it. I get it. And all I want to do is reach out and hug and embrace. And if I have to, give them a bed and give them chicken soup the way you give me chicken soup, George, and serve the person as best as you can until that thing passes. Because one of the great lines about suicide is that it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It is not the solution ever. But I understand why one goes there. I have been shown the doorway to that. I have to say it's the worst doorway I've ever seen. I don't ever want to walk through it personally, but I get why one would, because pain on a certain level in human experience is beyond anything most of us have ever come upon. And I will tell you, there's not a lot you can do at that point, but jumping off a bridge is not the answer. So all I can say is reach out if you have that issue. Reach out to anybody. I feel badly if they have the police take you to jail, but at least you'll be alive. I feel badly if you go into an institution for a period of time because they will drug you into a state of something. On the other hand, to keep you alive for a period of time is really important, because you will go through this and it will pass, as everything passes. So that's all I can tell you about suicide. I don't know any more about it except that I have personal sense of what it is. Okay. See, okay, Shelley.
Is it all right if I ad lib to that, Bruce?
Okay, sure.
God gives us freedom of will because he wants to see what we'll do. However, because we didn't create ourselves, because God created us, he owns our lives. We don't own our lives. Therefore, we don't have the right to take our own life. And if people knew what happened to them when they took their own life, I guarantee you nobody would do it. Because what happens is you take your own life, your spirit guide's angry at you, God's angry at you, and he puts you in a little room once you do this until he figures out what to do with you. Then whatever it was that made you commit suicide in the first place, you're going to have to come back and live it all over again. And next time it's a lot harder and a lot worse than it was the first time.
Shelley, I'm going to stop you. I think that's all a story. I really think it's a story. I'm not going to buy it. You may be absolutely right, but I will tell you, I think it's bigger than that. I don't think that it's contained in that kind of judgment. I think living with that idea about suicide, although you may be 100% right, is not necessarily going to explain the pain that people have when they leave this world through suicide. And I'm very conscious nowadays of the larger narrative that informs almost all of our lives, and most of it, I have to say, is bullshit. It's bullshit.
Well, that's your right. I
Yep.
understand.
Well, that's so I'm going to exercise that right now, only because I don't want to impress people with that as a final thought. You may be 100% right, and I have been on journeys where that would have said yes to that. But at this point in time, I think our mind, our narrative, our story is so other than what we can imagine and contain through our built-in brain and our day-to-day experience. So I'm going to leave it at that. Will, I noticed you had a question. I can't hear you, Will.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I have an identical situation to happening to a lifelong friend, and I may take them in also after getting out of the hospital and so on. The question I wanted to ask you is kind of simple, but should I teach them our meditation? Is this a bad time? Should I follow my instincts?
The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, my feeling is if ever there was a time in this world for this to be made available to people in any way that you can make it available, certainly in terms of action, in terms of how you live your life, really important. But this teaching is extraordinary because Most people's life is completely outer directed. The idea that you can just turn it around and find a balance and a harmony and a sympathy and a love and a kindness in yourself is so important. And I don't know how or why Rudy taught that. I don't know what it means in the larger scheme of things, but I do know that in terms of my own life, in terms of the energetic experience that I find when I teach, it has real helping value for people. And I know you for decades, and I know you have a capacity to give that. So if you wanted to sit and be a teacher of this, and there are many people out here who could do that, you should ask me, ideally. You shouldn't just sit down and do it. But the truth is, almost everybody who's been doing this work for a period of time has an access point to it. And what happens as an access is that when you teach, it expands. It expands not for you, although you benefit, but for everybody who draws from it. So if you can become a point of availability to serve other people through this, everyone wins, everyone. So yes, the answer is yes. Anybody else? Kathy.
I just wanted to say, I mean, I've worked with people in this way, for most of my life now. And I understand that somebody who's basically got a healthy mind and a healthy persona can get very depressed and work out of it without medication. But for some people who have a real dysfunction in how the physical brain works and have real chemical imbalances, medication is really a lifesaver.
Well, I want to say I agree with you. I think I have people I know who are living on medication and whose lives are deeply benefited by that. I will tell you the little bits that I have had experience with medication like that it dulls my humanity.
Yeah, me too.
Puts me into a kind of strange zone that allows me to touch very little of anything beyond the very middle of it. And if you are suffering, if you're really suffering, I say medication it's better than alcohol or anything. It's a better approach. But if there's any way to work through all of this, I think there's an extraordinary a journey to be had in terms of the spiritual flowering and awakening of a human being. But some of us are just given so much to deal with in a lifetime that medication is better than meditation, if you will, or maybe the combination is the best. But all I know is I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just trying to provide a pathway for those of us who are doing a spiritual life to do the best they can. That we are endlessly human, and that one way or another we are vulnerable, and we are not perfect, and we need all the help we can get. I'm just pushing the button of others helping and helping others as a button rather than taking a pill. On the other hand, whatever you can do, you should do. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Sure. Tony?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Bruce, for addressing this. I have never seen this in any of this spiritual literature I've read, and I'm finding it incredibly helpful, especially the focus on serving. I think that's going to clarify a lot of things for me.
Well, I think it goes right back to Christ, actually. Do unto others, or forgive them for they know not what they do. I mean, there's core elemental teaching in that. But it is from a practical day-to-day sense, an amazing experience that you get to taste in the moment as you do it. Bring love and kindness into the environment, and it's there at that instant. And it's a great thing. So I would hope other people are teaching it, and I'm not the only one out there, because it's a core idea. Anybody else? You have to speak up, I think, because I don't see everybody. Okay. It's been a long class. Thank you guys for coming. There's no class at this moment next week because if I'm better from COVID, we are going away with Ari is coming into town with his wife, Burju, and Josh and family. We're all going out on a weekend visit to a what do you want to call it, farmhouse. But it was owned by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, so it looks really pretty. And we're going to spend a birthday weekend delayed if all goes well. And if not, I'm going to send them off to have a good time, and I will finish my recovery here. Even so, I think, well, I mean, if that's what happens, I'll let you know if there'll be a class next weekend. But right now, no class next weekend. And the weekend after that, I'm going to maybe do this again, a combined class, because it seems to work. Okay.